Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. And I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. Today on Grasp Confidence Podcast, I have the pleasure of introducing my friend and colleague, Nia Luckey. Nia is a cybersecurity expert as well as professional speaker, and she's been doing a little writing lately. So, Nia, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Tara. A pleasure to be here. I've been following you for a while now, but it's an absolute pleasure to, reach your audience and share a little bit about me today.
Well, it's so exciting, to connect, and I've been on this journey with you now for a while, and I've seen your just transformation, for lack of a better word, right? It's not only been a pleasure to see as, fellow just female leader really taking the reins in her area of expertise, which is so small,
Yes.
by the way, right? So small. But not only doing that, you're doing it in a really big way. You're stepping on stages, you're teaching audiences, you're writing your expertise in books. You're really getting this huge acknowledgement in your area as the subject matter expert. So I really want to hit on that and just say, wow, I'm really impressed of your growth.
I really appreciate it. But what I want your audience to know is that it does, take a little bit of a network and it is a little bit of a journey. And finding you in the middle of my journey last year, I think has really helped accelerate that transformation and that revival, if you will. I was very lost when I found you, and I'm very grateful to not just be on your podcast today, but to see the fruits of that day in and day out kind of paying off, especially as we gear up for a successful 2025. And yes, it did start with a co-authorship opportunity last year that I didn't hesitate. I said yes when I wasn't getting a lot of yeses. And it's been very transformative.
Wow. I want to just reiterate something you just said because it was so powerful. I was saying yes when I wasn't getting a lot of yeses.
Yeah.
Right there. Boom. Like so much. That was $10,000 worth of wisdom.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening to that, because I think we've all been there, right? A time or two when nobody is saying yes to us. And it feels like I'm spinning my wheels. I'm even reversing. Sometimes you think, or I'm wasting so much energy. And sometimes it's a matter of us saying yes to ourselves.
Yeah. To be that spark, to be that change, right? And so I can only imagine how many no's he received when he was making his cold calls to see who could help write a book. But I was like, you know what? Today I'm going to be the yes. And it was such a mindset shift, and it was so small and so within my control. And that's a lot of what has transformed over the last 6 months for me is what can Nia control? What can I do? And how do I want to show up versus how I was when I kind of met you last year, which was more recluse and a little beaten up, right? Corporate cybersecurity is not for the faint of heart, my friend. And especially as women leaders in technology, we really need to surround each other and lift each other up, even if, Tara doesn't understand what Nia does. And I have a pretty good understanding of what Tara does, but we lift each other up. It's a sisterhood. It's a network. It's about connectivity and reminding each other, right, of our spark and the gifts we have, and that it is our responsibility to kind of share that with the world. And how do we want to do that instead of, this shell of ourselves that we can sometimes become.
Mm. It's so powerful, right? I think so many of us are waiting. We're waiting on the sideline that one opportunity just come. And sometimes we don't know we're in this state of waiting.
Right.
Until we just start saying, again, yes to ourselves, right? And how can I make my own opportunities, which I think is really key too.
It is.
Sometimes opportunities don't come to you because you're meant to make your own. And that doesn't sound appealing sometimes.
I like that though.
Right? Because that sounds like, ouch, that's going to be harder work. But it's actually kind of more fun and empowering. And that's one of the things that I like about you too, is just this sense of empowerment.
Yes.
And I love that, right? Because I was just talking to someone else, right? And I said, my gosh, so, most of cybersecurity professionals, the experts in the industry, right? It's like 85% male.
It is.
Oh, more. And then here you are, you're a female in the industry, but then you've also got this interesting background. You're a veteran.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So what on earth? This sounds like such a unique story, because it is, right?
It is.
How did you go from that to where you are now?
So when I was 17, I graduated high school. Cybersecurity wasn't a thing, Tara. There wasn't a degree in it. It was like an add-on to undergraduates at the time. So I was like, well, what else could I do? And I wanted to do it independent of universities or the track that my parents wanted. Like I always had this drive and this strong independent streak. So I joined the military, and I did that for about 13 years and raised an entire family in it. And then cybersecurity became a thing. And you could get certifications in it. You could get degrees in it. You could really start carving out a career path for yourself. And that's where it all started, was one certification over 10 years ago now. And I never looked back. And the reason I didn't look back, it just came down to like an evaluation of cost, right? If my little family was growing and I was up to 3 children, how was I going to afford to do that with the current deployment and salary expectations of the job that I was currently in? And realistically speaking, the needs of the family finally superseded the needs of the country. So with the support of my partner, along with mentors in this space, I did a brave thing. I went back to night school at 30 years old.
Oh my gosh, with kids.
With kids. And this was after achieving one certification. I was like, I'm done. And I never looked back. And I don't regret it a day in my life. I don't regret my service. I love my service. It gave me so much discipline and bigger understanding of the bigger picture that more of my skills are from then than they are, in the current space that I'm in. And it's because of that discipline, that management, that ideology that isn't so common in society, never mind private sector, right? So I'm really enjoying the journey, but that's really how it started. Was I had strong conviction. I was going to retire. I was going to do my 20 years. I was going to retire out. And then my career of my dreams became tangible is really what it came down to. And I felt like I not only owed it to myself, but I did owe it to my children to pursue that, right? To show them what pursuing a dream looks like. And I've been able to do that successfully over the last decade, if not a little bit longer now. Yeah.
Incredible. And I can't, again, as you're talking, I'm like, she's got to be 1% or less, right? 1% or less. I think 1% is actually probably too generous, but yes, you are that small of the people that do exactly what you do. So it's amazing. I applaud your efforts, right? But, I can't imagine it was easy. I'm sure you've had a lot of obstacles along the way, stuff that knocked your confidence.
Yes.
Problems. I mean, we all do, right? I would love
agree.
to know, I'm sure these things were happening coming into your life. Why was it important to you to pursue this, and what did it really result in for you?
Well, it kind of takes me back to being a 13-year-old and having my Peter Parker moment when I got bit by the spider, right? I always had an affinity for computers and understanding how they worked, how to even bypass things, right? That kind of tenacious little teenager brain, and just how to get results, better security, better functionality at that time, better access at that time, going all the way back. And the second it became obtainable, like I could get paid to do this, yeah, game changer. Game changer. But it didn't start with, Nia working in protocols or doing the engineering side of the house. I actually started in technical writing. So I took a passion that developed when I was younger, which was writing. I was a published poet by the age, I think it was in 8th grade when I was first published. And I applied it to something that really made my brain tick. And that resulted in working in controls compliance, right? Which is another very dry, very 1% of people are like, yeah, sign me up. Let me do that in cybersecurity. And that's how I laid my foundation while I was going to night school. For me, it was about marrying my passion with practical application of a job, because if not, I get bored. I have a little bit of wanderlust as it relates to skills and upskilling our ability to connect. So interpersonal skills, communication skills, presentation skills, executive presence. But in order for any of that to matter, you really need to be great at one or two things. And so I really focused those first 3 years on being great at technical writing and controls analytics, like basically saying you're compliant or you're not compliant. Let me help you become compliant, right? And going for these really high up government accreditations that also said, yes, you are compliant. And I had a lot of success in it. And so then naturally for me, it was more of a progression of, okay, well, what else? Right? If this is a small piece of how we get to a larger picture, how do we organize the work? How do we deliver the work? How do we communicate the progress up, right? So now, instead of the hands-on keyboards, analytics type of work and the technical writing type of work, I still write. It's just presentations, and it's at a program level, right? And it's so now you have the ability to manage these really large, high-performing teams, but with that does come challenges. The one tip I would have given myself, at least in those first 3 years, was develop your people skills. Learn how to develop your critical relationships and maintain those relationships. Just because you're both equally passionate and you have a friction point one day doesn't mean there's not value in that relationship. So if I could go back to, early on 30-something-year-old Nia and give her one tip of advice, that's exactly what it would be. You never know what people are going through in the background behind their professional life. And I want to be that empathetic leader that hears you where you are, but we're also able to work together to drive some type of value or change and innovation in what we do.
I love that. So beautiful, right? That's, I just can feel the passion when you get it. And that's what it is. It's very passionate for you. It's very purpose driven. You mentioned earlier, I kind of chuckled a little bit. You said, I have no idea what you're doing. Oh my gosh, you're so right. Like what you do is like well beyond my realm of expertise, and I'll admit it. But I would love to know, because, fill us in, right? For the people that are listening that, don't really understand what this is or how it can benefit a company. I would love to know how, in what ways this could really benefit an organization and help them scale and protect themselves, and what that means for them.
Yeah. And I love that question because my answer over the last 5 years has really evolved. I used to compare it to a house, right? And the security of your home. And I think that's very relatable, especially because it's about, are your windows locked? Are your doors locked? Right. And then the euphemism there is the house is your organization. Where I sit now, I kind of almost look at the journey more like a suit, right? So you're getting into corporate, you're breaking into your first job, and maybe it is technical writing, maybe it's project management, but you need that first suit that really makes you pop and makes you feel confident in the role you're in. But over time, you're going to improve that suit, you're going to tailor that suit. You're going to maybe add pieces to it, right? I'm a sucker for a 3-piece. So you get the vest, you have the shirt, you have the jacket, you have the pants. But if they're not tailored and measured, right, to you, how does that organization look? How does it present back? And that to me is cybersecurity, right? It's saying, hey, we have this suit over here. We haven't really touched it in 2 years. Does it still fit? Are the sleeves too long? Are the pants too short? Right? Do we have a hole in the back pocket? Are we tending the way we're supposed to and putting our investment dollars into maintaining that the way the organization looks and ultimately how secure you are at the end of the day? Right? There are organizations that do a great job demonstrating like, nope, at the baseline level, we're really good. But then you have organizations like SEC, FDIC coming in and really testing that metal of saying like, okay, now we're really going to measure. We're really going to see just how secure you are. Is it more than just a fancy suit that you got tailored fit once? Or is it something that you go and you take it to the dry cleaners every year? Because that's a drastically different conversation. And regardless of the size of your organization, small, medium, large, right? That suit is still critical. Now, the level of tailoring involved, depending on the size of your organization, is a little bit different. But ultimately, I always encourage small businesses, go for that tailored suit. Like, even if it is a little outside of the budget, like look at it as an investment. And an investment in what, right? And the investment in protecting sensitive data. Like full stop, right? What's private about Terra, let's keep that private. What's private about Nia, let's keep that private. And how well is the organizations we work for doing that? And then if we have clients, are we keeping their data equally private? Because I think that matters too, right? If a company is providing a service, for example, are we ensuring they're compliant with our level of standard, even though they're external? Right? Are we still at the same threshold? Because if not, then you're going to see drift and you're going to see a difference in treatment of sensitive data sets, which can lead to breaches, right? They always say in cybersecurity, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So what I like to do is come in, whatever the capacity, whatever the role, and support organizations in achieving that through the role I'm hired to support.
Wow, I love that. I never would have thought of that analogy, but once you said it, it's so simple to understand, right? And it makes sense that, a business that's a smaller LLC wouldn't have the same security needs as a huge, like Fortune 100 or 500 company, right? So it is a tailored suit, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It sounds very personalized to that company and their specific needs, right?
Yes, no, that's exactly it. And I think that's a bit of the mindset shift, especially coming out of government work, is typically they hand you the one-size-fits-all, and they're like, no, make it fit. The unique opportunity once you leave public sector or government contracting in cybersecurity specifically is then you're the tailor. You get to come in and you get to tailor fit that in. Or if something's a little too stringent, be that expert in the room that says, okay, well, if not this, then let's look over here because I think this might fit your business need and your functionality need a little bit more. Because a lot of the services on the government side, those are more internally facing, where we're not serving the public a service or, some type of functionality. And if we are, then yes, we could do the accreditation packages and make sure that we're, in line with government regulation. But when you get into private sector, it's a lot of, are there better fits out there? And then you get to be that person that brings that conversation and that expertise to the table. And what I hunt for are like those light bulb moments and everybody's like, yes, and energized, because it is a world of no. It's a world of you're not doing this right. And that can get really bummy and it can get really defeatist and it can get really, what's the point? And I like to be that person in the room that's like, well, here's the point. And let's try and get there together in a realistic way that's not going to have your engineers running for the door.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense why especially large companies need this. Sounds like everybody needs this really who has any type of data, whether that be internal or external data from clients and customers. What would be the ramifications or some of the maybe, during your field of study? I'm sure you've encountered this. Companies that didn't take action. What does that look like, Nia? Either have you seen it with your own eyes or have you heard stories from colleagues or just in the news in general?
I've heard stories, and so have you. A really big one that comes to mind, and it's just because I worked for them as a client. Think Target.
Ooh, Target. Wow.
Did Target ever think that their HVAC system, what provides your AC and heating, would be the source of a breach? They didn't. And guess what? The adversaries were able to get to financial data
Through HVAC system.
through an HVAC system, through a sensor that is known as Internet of Things. So it has an IP address. And they got into the HVAC system and they traversed to where the financial data lived. Very simple. Very simple.
You say.
Well,
Wow.
very big, but very, very big. And so if we scale back, because Target is a large organization, but let's talk more LLC. A lot of those companies don't survive breaches. They're done. The fines alone and the lawsuits alone from the clients, if their information gets out there, is enough to cripple, if not end, a small business today in 2025 and in 2024. Because we have other requirements coming out, right? So let's say you're a small company and you want to grow, right? That's a big, I think, part of having a company is growth. What's that growth path? Well, and we all know that there's a thing known as mergers and acquisitions, right? And that's the coming together of typically two companies. Did you know that in certain states you are required to let your client list that you're buying know that you're buying their data and give them the ability to opt out of the sale of that data?
Wow. I did
And if
not.
you're not doing that,
Yeah.
and it's found out to be, that could be a fine that's large enough to cripple a small organization.
Wow.
And so it's not just about the large stories, right? Because obviously we have large companies out there. You could do a quick Google search. ChatGPT might even be able to pull you some current use cases out of 2024 where this was very prevalent. The quiet ones are the small to medium organizations, because you want to keep it like, yep, you're pre-IPO. You don't have to disclose to the public, but at the same time, something simple as ensuring, right, you have the right encryption on your router or on your firewall or your VPN when accessing client data. Just small little things can be the difference between a successful business or a business that's crippled by a very simplistic attack. And that's kind of the reality of today, because there are people out there, their day in, day out is to break into your system.
Wow.
So whereas my day in, day out is to protect your systems and deliver sound systems and make them more secure, you have people where all they're doing when they wake up in the morning to when they go to bed, they're hacking systems. That is what they do. They can go onto the dark web. They are for hire. And their whole purpose is to target sensitive data, financial data, which is sensitive data, by the way, and either take it for ransom for other organizations or just do it because they can. And that's the scary part, is when you have passion, but then that passion is aligned with an action that stands to really do a lot of harm, and it's not based in good intent. And that's kind of what drives what I do, right? I'm like, well, if there's, 10 of them for every Nia, then yeah, I want to be the best representation of how to combat that.
Wow. I applaud your efforts. You're doing good in the world, right? And this is the exact type of person I like to interview for this show as a guest. People that are doing good in the world, people that are helping others, either others individually or other businesses. And clearly you're doing that. And you're using your expertise. And it's clearly an area of passion and purpose for you, again, to do that better in the world. And that's so admirable. But I love the fact that, you don't just coach and consult. You also speak on stage and you teach companies, right? On a B2B level through keynotes as well, which is so cool that before when we started this conversation, you said if I would have given myself one piece of advice, the 30-year-old Nia, it would have been people skills. And it takes a lot of people skills, Nia, to speak on stage. So hats off to you, my friend, that you're able to do this like super high level consulting work for major organizations on cybersecurity. And holy cow, that Target story blew my mind. But then you're also able to take your expertise, put it on stage, show it and tell it in a very dynamic way.
Yes.
That is so cool. Again,
And that's been a growth journey of its own too. So going from like little introverted, nobody's going to think I have a good idea, Nia, at technical colleges, right? Because that's where it started. To I'll be in LA next month, and I'll be giving a talk on how to comply with SEC's 96-hour rule, but from a practitioner lens, right? From an application developer lens, because that's where, honestly, if we're really being honest about it, that's where the translation's needed the most. So if I could be that one person that's like, yep, bring me in, I'll break it down, take hyper complex into simplified application, that's whole different skill set. And inarguably to me, you don't have to just be in cybersecurity to do that, right? But it's that connection and that communication skill. It's leaning up into mentors and friends to advise on what you're talking about, how you're showing up, and just refining that message over time, right? So Young Nia, Classroom, FTCC, so Fayetteville Technical Community College is where I started cutting my teeth there, but to be talking to OWASP LA, SoCal LA, and potentially ISACA LA, all in one room next month, just less than 10 years, right?
You didn't give up.
No. We need to be having these conversations, and we need to take the time to break it down and give it for, and this might get a bad rap, but in some cases, give it for free. Put the information out there so that other people can learn and apply. Now, granted, there is a space for paid speaking engagement, sure, but for me, where I'm at in my career, the large success goes to these nonprofit organizations where it's more about community and like-mindedness, along with strong ethics and integrity, and getting that message out into the world, especially here in the United States, where we have competing priorities and business practices. And a lot of times we're brought in to be that firefighter, to help you put those fires out and make sure that they don't just like pop up on a weekend. But there's no greater joy because you're making impact beyond yourself. And then, it opens the opportunity to mentor globally. I do that as well through the CyberSafe Foundation. I help young women in Africa break into what I do. Like, whoa. And then I have the privilege of working alongside Dr. Mattard at Kennesaw State in Georgia to do something very similar for his undergraduate and graduate students. And again, it pays you back in dividends, because if you can make it make sense, your message, your idea, then it's just a ripple effect after that, right? And that's what makes me really happy, because you're driving impact in a very different, almost non-linear way that I think we need more of.
Wow. I love that. It's all about creating impact. And when you put good out in the world, it always comes back to you every single time. And it may not sometimes be in the way we think it's going to come in the exact package, but it comes back. And, when you keep putting out those plus signs out there, right? Right? Plus signs. Everywhere you go, there's a plus sign behind you. A recent podcast guest actually told me that when we leave that trail of plus signs behind us, inevitably success follows. It's it's inevitable. It truly is. And I love the work that you're doing, not only for yourself, right, in the consulting arena and the speaking and the writing and really thought leadership of what it is, to be secure, but also the work that you're doing, um, in a broader sense for every woman who wants to carve a path and make a name for themselves and support their families and do better in the world and help companies and organizations do the same. So in many ways, you're a mentor to thousands.
Yes. And it really caught me by surprise when we started seeing the numbers. We had one young woman report over a 400% increase in household income by breaking into cybersecurity through the CyberSafe Foundation. 400%.
Incredible.
And so when we think about it, because I do think we get a little spoiled here in the US, but when you think about it globally, and then you really assess the impact, there's nothing I would rather do.
I love that. Oh my
than
goodness.
help the young, fired up, very passionate. Reminds me of young Nia. Let's go. Because the reality is I'm always looking for somebody to replace me.
Yeah.
Somebody who's younger, smarter, sharper. But yes, am I a little biased? Would I prefer it to be a woman in technology? I absolutely would. Right. Again, with that 1-to-10 ratio, it gets a little glaring. But what I am starting to see a lot more of is, at least at the executive levels and up, there's a nice level set that's starting to occur. Now I just want that to translate down into the teams and really empower women that they can do this. And you don't have to give up once you have children. Like I said, I have 3. You don't, but you're teaching them what passion looks like in the current age, and you're allowing them to make choices for themselves, which I absolutely love being a part of that journey for them.
You're not only shaping the lives of thousands today, but generations to come. Nia, wow, I am so inspired. I'm sure everybody listening to this is. And I would encourage anybody listening to this. I know there's a lot of business owners, founders, and entrepreneurs out there. Guys, reach out to Nia for your cybersecurity needs, not only to help your organization succeed, scale, grow, go to the next level, and prepare yourself before an accident happens, a little misstep, or before a merger and acquisition comes. This is so important, as Nia said, right? So reach out to Nia for that. But not only that, she can elevate and inspire your team on the stage, speak to your audiences, and transform their lives in the process. Nia, it was so great to have you on the show. Where can everybody find you?
So I'm mostly available on LinkedIn. I do have some of my audit expertise and ideas out there on YouTube as well. But I am mostly active on LinkedIn right now. We're trying to expand that. But what's most important is, if you want to learn more, there's a link right there, and that'll take you to my link tree. It'll take you to the publication if you want to read up on the CISO Playbook for 2025. And to just take a look at some of my larger successes and advice that I've given in the more recent months. That's all available on there.
I love that. Nia, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. And thank you for everyone who tuned in to this episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your audience so that we can grow alongside you in your journey to confidence and success. We will catch you on the next episode. Take care.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.